In this lecture, you'll look at the anatomy and physiology of the neuron or nerve cell. Neurons are also called nerve cells. They are highly specialized and their job is to conduct nerve impulses, also known as electrical impulses. Here are some characteristics of neurons. They have extreme longevity, which means they can live more than 100 years. They are amitotic, which means they cannot divide, and they have a high metabolic rate. They require continuous supplies of oxygen and glucose, and without them, the organism would die within a few minutes. Here are the parts of a neuron. The short processes are known as dendrites. The main part of the neuron is the cell body, or soma. The large extension is known as an axon. The axon is covered by Schwann cells, also known as a myelin sheath. The points in between the Schwann cells are known as the nodes of Ranvier. Each Schwann cell has a nucleus. At the end of the axon are branches known as telodendria. The axon terminal is the bulbous end of each of the telodendria. And of course, the cell body itself has a nucleus. See if you can label these parts from memory. Here are some important terms to know. Neuron processes are axons and dendrites. Axons carry the nerve impulse away from the cell body of the neuron, and the dendrite carries nerve impulses toward the cell body of the neuron. Tracts are bundles of neuron processes in the central nervous system, and nerves are bundles of neuron processes in the peripheral nervous system. Let's compare axons and dendrites. Axons are longer than dendrites. There is one axon per neuron. The axons arise from an area known as the axon hillock. Branches are called axon collaterals and are at right angles to the main axon. Axons branch profusely at the end into telodendria. Axon terminals are the bulbous endings of telodendria. In comparison to axons, dendrites are short, they branch diffusely, and they are more numerous than axons. Schwann cells form myelin sheaths around the axon. The myelin sheath is whitish in color, fatty in nature. It is segmented, and its job is to protect and insulate. The myelin sheath increases the speed of transmission of an electrical impulse. In the peripheral nervous system, myelin sheaths are formed by Schwann cells. Schwann cells do not touch. Myelin sheaths are associated only with axons and never with dendrites, and the node of Ranvier is the gap between Schwann cells where the axon is not covered with a myelin sheath. It's this characteristic that increases the speed of an electrical impulse. This picture was taken with an electron microscope. It's known as an electron micrograph. In this you can see axons covered with myelin sheaths and the nodes of Ranvier between individual Schwann cells. The brain is composed of both white matter and gray matter. The central nervous system has both myelinated and unmyelinated axons. Oligodendrocytes form myelin sheaths in the central nervous system. White matter is the area of the brain and spinal cord with myelinated fibers. Gray matter is the area of the brain and spinal cord with unmyelinated fibers and cell bodies. Those that are myelinated are white matter, the unmyelinated are the gray matter. Neurons can be classified in one of two ways, either structurally or functionally. Let's look first at the structural classification. There are multipolar, bipolar, and unipolar neurons. The prefix multi means many. Multipolar neurons have 3 or more processes. It's the most common neuron type in humans. It is the major neuron type in the central nervous system. Most multipolar neurons have one axon and many branching dendrites. Bipolar neurons. Bi means 2. Bipolar neurons have 2 processes, one axon and one dendrite. They extend from opposite ends of the cell body. They are rare in the adult body. They are found only in some special sense organs like the retina of the eye. And finally, unipolar neurons. Uni means one. Unipolar neurons have a single process that comes from the cell body. The process is short and it divides like a T. These neurons act as sensory neurons. In this slide, you can see unipolar, bipolar, and multipolar neurons. Note the differences we talked about on the last slide. The second way to classify neurons is functionally, that is, according to what they do. Neurons are grouped according to the direction in which the nerve impulse travels relative to the central nervous system. There are three types of neurons based on function: sensory, motor, and association neurons. So let's compare sensory, motor, and association neurons. Sensory neurons carry impulses toward the central nervous system. They are also called afferent neurons, and most of them are unipolar. Motor neurons carry impulses away from the central nervous system out toward the muscles. They are also called efferent neurons, and most of them are multipolar. Association neurons are also known as interneurons because they connect motor and sensory neurons. Usually they're multipolar. Most are within the central nervous system, and 99% of the neurons of the body are interneurons.